Do you mind if I tell you a story about the Flagman of Florida? If you don't know what a flagman is, that's the guy on the train and off the train that waves a flag to let the other engineers know on the trains what's going on. Anyway, about a year before the Civil War started, there was a man named Henry, handsome man, over 6'4". He had cold gray eyes, trim and lean, strong, with plenty of hair. Anyway, he was a flagman on the trains going right through Central Florida, right through, and all the way down to as far as to Miami. Anyway, he had he had a natural ability or fault of attracting the most beautiful women all along the train line. For some reason, they would see him and just swoon. They just, even if he had to run to the cafe, if they were in a cafe, off the train, they just couldn't stop looking at him. He was that handsome of a guy. So, anyway, there was a girl in particular. Now, he had made his rounds and all his train stops, if you will, and, locked hitches with, several of these beautiful women. But there was one that just, her name was Susie Q. And she just thought the world of him. And you know what's weird is she knew he was a tomcat, if you will. And now the whole thing about it is that Henry really fell for Susie Q. Now, it's not Susie Q, but her last name was, if I don't know if I'll pronounce this right, Quetzalcoatl, like the ancient Mexican god or goddess, or anyway, but that was her last name. She had jet long black hair, and just her eyes looked like two pieces of just volcanic melting coal in her eye sockets. Her skin wasn't, it was like a mixture of soft tan and olive colored. Anyway, she was a knockout. She was gorgeous, and she came from a wealthy family, a ranching family here in Florida. So anyway, he would always stop and talk to her, and she would actually bring him basket lunches out to the whenever he was near. And the weirdest thing, there was no phones, but she knew, even if the train was late or early, she had an instinct of where he would be, and she always found him. Henry was always amazed by this. So anyway, so he fell for her so bad that he stopped seeing all his normal stops along the tracks. You know, Billy Joe and Sarah, Karen, Kelly, Melissa. He stopped. He stopped because he thought this Susie Q is the one for him. And he finally made up his mind to ask her to marry him. Now, she had no idea, and she was just, you know, knew how he was, even though she acted like she didn't. You know, she acted like, you know, she was his only one, but she didn't care. She just thought there was something special about this man, Henry. So, there was a little problem though. Her father wanted her to marry this really rich lawyer. His name was Brandon. And they owned just, I mean, hundreds and 1,000 acres somewhere. And, but she found him to be stuffy. And she could just had a sense, you know how women have a sense? She sensed that there was something wrong with him, like a little bit of evil. You know what I mean? But, you know. So anyway, when Brandon found out about this Henry guy and Susie Q, he said, well, I'm going to put a stop to this. So there, you know, the evil green monster came out, the jealousy, you know. So what he did was he found out everything he could, because he's a lawyer and he was smart, what train, where it stopped, and he was going to sabotage the train. And so what he did was he paid a couple of kids from a bad area of town to fell a giant tree, a giant cypress, right on the tracks before the train came. Now this train was the CSX, the Confederate Southern Railroad. So Henry was on that. And so he was stopping, and all them girls, all along the way, they were waiting for him, but he wouldn't visit them. He didn't visit them. And on this day, when Susie Q, Quetzalcoatl, met him, he got down on his knee on a railroad tie and asked her to marry him and to come with him. And she agreed. She couldn't believe it, but she was just, her face was like, you know how what? So he got her on the train. He told the engineer everything. They were going to get hitched. If you hitch, you get it. But they were going to get married in the next little town just outside of Plant City or somewhere around that area here in Florida. So she's on the train. They're on the back of the train on the caboose, and there's with the two lights, and he's got his flags and everything, and he's still working, mind you. So anyway, so Brandon, he's back there in he's at his office. He's just waiting to hear just a crash and bang and get the news from the kids he had cut that tree on the tracks. For that, he was going to fix this Henry guy and get rid of him so he could have Susie Quetzalcoatl, Susie Q, most beautiful woman, maybe, you know. Anyway, so that train and this lawyer guy, Brandon, he knew what he was doing, because that train was full tilt, full steam. I mean, that black smoke was pouring out of the stack. Woo, woo. it was just cooking. And it was too late. They hit, I mean, that train had, it had coal on it, and firewood, and salt, and oranges. It hit that tree, giant cypress laying on the tracks. It derailed. It was, and Henry grabbed Maria in in an embrace, because they hit, and then the whole train was, going sideways and rolling, He was trying to protect her, but there was really nothing he could do, and they both were crushed by the train. They died. And so word got back and everything, and this Brandon guy, this lawyer guy, he thought, oh, there should be time. They let him, they say, hey man, that train, it was bad crash. So he thought, well, I'll just mosey over there and make sure this Henry guy is gone for good. And he gets over there, and now this is out in the boonies, it's the country. There's not much. There's a few people gathered around, some farmers, neighbors, And he walks up, and what does he see? This woman that he was obsessed with, that he did all this for, laying under the train, being embraced by Henry. So he did that, he thinking he was going to get her, and he was never going to have her now. So anyway, what happened was, he was so disturbed by his own actions that he began drinking heavily. Brandon did, this lawyer guy. And soon his practice failed because of his alcoholism. And his friends and family just turned their backs on him. He was just a mess, and they thought, what's wrong with him but he could never confide. He could never tell anyone, that he had caused this accident to kill the love what he thought was the love of his life. But she didn't want anything to do with him. So eventually he drank himself completely stupid to death, and then he died of a heart attack in 1862, I believe. Now here's where it gets, I don't know what, but this is the story. Every month on a full moon, especially in the winter time, when there's like the fog hanging towards the ground, and the Spanish moss, and the giant live oaks. But every month on a full moon, people swear they see Henry the Flagman, and Susie Quetzalcoatl, walking hand in hand with a picnic basket to just right into the fog, and they disappear. It's a little... Anyway, so apparently they're still together even in the afterlife. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that story. They say it's a true story.